Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our ninth formal SWOG webinar. Tonight we are joined by Elliot Carpenter from the Forestry Commission, and we're going to be looking at tree health and managing pests and diseases with a look at Ips typographus and some other ones too. So, Elliot, I'll pass over to you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sarah. And yeah, thank you all for attending. It's I'm great to see so many of you here. I've done a few webinars over the sort of past year or so, and never be so certain exactly what the numbers are going to be. So this is by far the best attended. So yeah, thank you so much, and for taking the time out on a Tuesday evening. Sarah said I work at the Forestry Commission. I'm the Ips typographus woodland officer, so it's one of the pests that pests and diseases I will cover. It's the 8-tooth spruce bark beetle, but I've been essentially at the Forestry Commission for 3 years now. Started out working on a grant scheme, pilot grant scheme called the Tree Health Pilot Grant Scheme, obviously in the name Tree Health, which is testing responses to a variety of pests and diseases to inform a future grant scheme. So obviously working closely on a number of different pests and diseases, and they're going to be the ones that focus on here tonight. There are obviously many pests and diseases that you may find in woodlands in the environment, but obviously given time and given importance and priority to the Forestry Commission, to yourselves, I've selected a few to highlight and go into a little bit of detail with. As I say, I've been working within tree health for at the FC for 3 years. I work very closely with other parts of the Forestry Commission. So I work in the southeastern London area team. So I cover pretty much from Hampshire over to Kent, in an area that we're focusing on reacting and encouraging proactive management for the beetle, but also work closely with the plant health forestry team and forest research, so the scientific arm of the Forestry Commission. So yeah, very much close contact with those involved heavily with tree health. So just to go through the sort of contents. So introduce myself. As I say, going to cover a selection of pests and diseases that you may likely come in contact with. I understand it's a national webinar, so yeah, some of these will be a bit more sort of regionally specific, but they're the more sort of prominent ones. So, and you may have heard of some of these already. Ips typographus I already mentioned. So the 8-tooth spruce bark beetle, oak processionary moth caterpillar, which is predominantly in the southeast, but is an emerging pest, has been over the past sort of decade or so. Phytophthora remorum, which is it's distributed around the country, but more regionally specific in certain areas.
Oh, stop here.
And ash dieback, which I'm sure all of you, most of you will have heard of, and have some experience in managing for and responding to. And then also, just a little bit towards the end on how you can get involved and how you can help with regards to our collective response to tree health issues. And then any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I think potentially if you can drop them in the chat if they come up throughout whilst I'm speaking during the session, and then pick them up at the end. And I will, as I say, do my best to answer them. If I'm unable to, I will be able to pass them on to more knowledgeable colleagues and make sure that you get the answers back to you on any of your particular questions. Okay, so Ips typographus. So what is it? It is, as I mentioned, the 8-tooth spruce bark beetle. it is called the 8-tooth spruce bark beetle, not because it has 8 teeth in its mouth. It is because it has a number of spines on its posterior that distinguish it from other Ips beetles. The Ips genus they are known as the engraver beetles. Ips typographus, its Latin name, means typography is the art of engraving, so it's really the engraver beetle, and it's called that because of, I'll show some pictures in a little bit, of these very distinctive, very interesting and beautiful galleries that larval galleries that it makes under the bark. And yeah, so it is a bark beetle, so essentially it bores into the bark of spruce trees. It's then feeds off and lays eggs and goes through its the majority of its life cycle underneath the bark of spruce trees, and yeah, it's a highly destructive pest when it reaches high numbers, so that it can then overwhelm the defenses of spruce trees. So essentially, healthy spruce trees are able to repel bark beetles by pushing out resin, so sap, and at sort of low levels, healthy trees can repel sort of tens of beetles that come in and try to feed off and breed on the trees. Weaker trees, snap trees, are prime targets for the beetle because that resin pressure is a lot lower, and so how we're experiencing them at the moment in the UK is that they are acting as a secondary pest, so really honing in on the susceptible material, weakened trees, snap trees, wind-blown trees. But if left unmanaged, they could then become a primary pest, which is seen on the continent, where they're able to overwhelm healthy trees in sort of large swathes. It's a pest of Picea species, so spruce trees. Norway spruce Picea abies being the prime one that we were experiencing on in the UK, but research and also experiences from continental outbreaks show that it can infest other spruce species such as Sitka, which obviously that's the sort of primary concern in the UK context, but also it can and has been shown to infest other conifer trees. So once it's utilized all its primary this desirable spruce material, it will at very high levels try and persist and establish on other species. So yes, this is its distribution. So endemic to large parts of Eurasia. It's localized populations throughout most of it, widespread through Scandinavia, some of Eastern Europe, as well as some Central Europe. So in the context to how we're experiencing it, it's the sort of Central European outbreaks. We are experiencing blowovers from the continent on the wind, and we're getting sort of the edge beetles that are being blown over in the right sort of wind conditions, and they're being brought over into the southeast and east of England. Why is it's not already present in the UK? It's thought that, well, essentially Norway spruce is not native to the UK. It was thought that it was in the last interglacial period, but after that ice age, it didn't manage to colonize again. So it is a non-native and invasive pest to the UK. So in terms of its life cycle, so to say the adult beetles, the male will hone in on susceptible spruce material, sort of pick up on the volatiles, sort of the chemicals of the spruce, hone in, bore a hole into the bark through to the phloem tissue, release an aggregation pheromone which will draw in females, and females, they will come in, mate with the male, and then they will produce these larval these galleries, so these nuptial chambers. The first female will go up the tree, and then any subsequent females will go down, so you can get another sort of one, two, three chambers going down the tree, but there'll always only ever be one up. And then yes, this very distinctive. So they'll lay their not legs, their eggs along the nuptial chambers along the side, and then the eggs will become larvae, and then they will eat their way outwards from the nuptial chambers, and then once they then they'll turn into pupae, and once they pupate, they will then bore out of the bark from the edge of these gallery chambers. So yeah, say the Ips typographus named as such because of these distinctive patterns. These are a lot more neat compared to other bark beetles. Other bark beetles are particularly messy. Ips typographus is also quite particular, and if there are already other bark beetles, it doesn't really like having to compete for space. There's also, yeah, it's got a particular sort of window of when the material is just right for it to establish on. So they kind of fill a particular niche, so there won't be these other bark beetles, and if there are a lot of other bark beetles present, then it's unlikely that Ips typographus will still be in there, and the material is either has essentially decayed too far for it to be of any use to Ips typographus. So it says there the flight season is April to September. I mean, the beetle unfortunately doesn't stick quite to those dates. We have to kind of respond to surveillance, and so we have traps, pheromone traps around the country. We also conduct aerial flights and ground surveys. So, as say, plant health forestry and forest research are conducting that surveillance continuously throughout the season, and also in the off season, looking at a lot of data and learning from that data in order to respond as best as possible. But yeah, so we monitor those catches, and then once the conditions are right, so a good indicator is 3 days of 20 degrees or more without any rain, and then that's a good indicator that it's sufficient for any beetles that have overwintered to emerge. And given if there's sort of similar conditions on the continent and the right winds, then chances are that there might be a blowover beginning as well. So yeah, it's that kind of beginning of spring when it warms up that we really start responding and really sort of picking up on the surveillance. So as I say, there's aerial target flights going on every sort of few weeks, and that will produce sites that require ground survey where they're very good in their helicopters. They can pick out individual trees that look just right for beetles, so brown tops, areas of wind blow, and then my colleagues will go in on the ground and start looking in a bit more detail for any galleries. And given the right conditions, there's 2 to 3. It's possible for 2 to 3 generations if left unmanaged. And given the right amount of sufficient resource in terms of material on the ground or standing for the beetles to breed on, we generally seem to see around sort of 2, and we're ideally trying to limit that through our response and our surveillance. So if you were to have a confirmed infestation of the beetle, that any infested material or very high risk material it's required to be destroyed within 6 weeks. So that we can limit the possibility of any further generations. So just to give you an idea of what those galleries look like in real life. So yeah, I've got some rulers for scale there. So the exit holes are quite distinctive as well. They're about 2 to 3 millimeters. Maybe touch bigger. But yeah, this is essentially, if we see sort of exit holes, we'll then take off bark panels and look underneath, and anything that looks like that would be very suspicious bark panel, and any live beetles that are found will then be put in sample pots and sent off to forest research for diagnosis and confirmation. Some more that been found. Yeah, so in that red box there, you can just about see some live beetles. I think there's 2 in there, 2 or 3. Very, very small, about sort of 5 millimeters in length.
Elliot,
Yeah,
are you sharing a PowerPoint screen?
I am.
We can't see it. We can just see your background.
Oh, right.
Okay.
This is supposed to be sharing. Can anyone see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see it.
I can
Yes.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
good.
can see it.
Okay.
I can,
Okay,
I
great.
can see it too. Yeah.
Oh, ignore me.
see it.
Ignore me then. I can't see it, but don't worry about me.
Okay, that's great. Okay. All right. Cool. But yeah, so essentially, yeah, these are what those galleries look like, what we're looking for. And as I say, any live beetles, any sort of good evidence will be sent off to Forest Research, and they will diagnose that within 24 hours, and then we will start the response, which will be sort of further surveillance in the local area and serving of. You may have heard of statutory plant health notices, which essentially are legal requirements to either destroy or contain pests and diseases within a certain area, and they will have certain deadlines depending on the pest and disease as to when those actions need to be taken by. So this is, I mean, it's not just specific to Ips typographus, but can sort of illustrate for all the pests and diseases I'm going to talk about and for any others. So the invasion curve is something that's really useful to describe where we're at with the sort of management of certain pests and diseases. So with Ips typographus, we are still very much at the eradication phase. It's small number of localized populations, and eradication is possible. So we are finding these populations. There is no evidence of onward spread within the country. We're experiencing blowovers continually from larger continental outbreaks. There are other pests and diseases where it's increased to levels where it's not possible to eradicate. We're finding it repeatedly in the sort of same area, and it's moving. So this would be something like, and I'll come on to it, oak processionary moth, where we are containing it, but in terms of certain areas, it's not possible to eradicate it. And then once a pest and disease, a pathogen has become widespread and abundant within the environment, it's looking at how to minimize sort of costs and the wider impacts on sort of society and on the environment. So that would be something like ash dieback, where it's so prevalent that we are sort of looking at ways to minimize those impacts. But it's given an understanding of sort of how our sort of our knowledge and response has changed from for Ips typographus. So since the 80s, we've monitored ports and sort of routes into the country for Ips typographus. Having seen the impact that it's had in Europe when it gets to high levels, it was of concern. So these traps have been monitoring, and it was thought that was really the only way route in, that it was on timber products. Then in 2018, a trap set in a woodland setting in near Ashford in Kent was started picking up significant numbers, and so triggered ground surveys, and that then discovered quite a large breeding population that hadn't been seen before in the UK. So from that, enhanced trapping networks put in place. Which has been enhanced even further over the last 6 years now. And a plant health order was put in place. So there's a demarcated area. So as you can see in this this picture, that's the red outline. The old demarcated area. This changed, I think, 2-3 weeks ago because of some earlier findings in East Anglia earlier this year. But essentially, from 2019 to 2024, it was this area of the southeast, which is marked in blue. So essentially, we then knew that it wasn't just coming in through ports. Looked at meteorological data, and the understanding is that it's blowovers from these continental outbreaks. And say the demarcated area is there are restrictions in place for felling and movement. So plant health forestry needs to give authorization for those, and there's required inspections to make sure that that there is no possibility of any existing establishments spreading. Yeah, and so yeah, why is spruce so important? As you can see from that that image, that's where it makes up more than 50. Well, you can see a lot of areas where it makes up more than 50% of the canopy. In Wales, Northern England, up in Scotland, there's significant Sitka spruce populations that really create the sort of backbone of our timber industry. So if it were to take hold in the UK, could have catastrophic impacts. There's relatively minimal spruce in the southeast and east of England, so we're working to eradicate it and help people manage against it, such as with proactive removal of spruce. So I've mentioned it's susceptible material. We don't find susceptible material in healthy trees. So yeah, high resin pressure, lots of foliage, lots of needle growth. So yeah, that denotes a healthy tree. And those that are too far gone, so they're too dead. There's not enough resource. So essentially, all the barks come off. They're falling over. There's no sort of fresh phloem there. But then this susceptible material, so something that is browning, not much needle retention, but there is still at some parts of the tree this phloem tissue that can be infested and exploited for several weeks, months, perhaps years if left unfound. And this is particularly found on recent wind throws. So we do a lot of monitoring, and we advise for monitoring after storms in the winter. The recent ones we've had was Eunice a couple of years ago. There was a lot of outbreaks were found after that. So yeah, these storms over the winter create really good material for Ips when it emerges and blows over from the continent. So in order to support landowners, we have grants available as part of the Tree Health Pilot. The Tree Health Pilot is the only grant scheme responding to Ips typographus at the moment. It's still a relatively new pest, and part of the pilot is working out what ways landowners need to be supported to respond to Ips typographus. So yeah, there are grants. There's an array of grants that are being tested. So for felling, permanent infrastructure, biosecurity capital items, restocking, maintenance, group facilitation. So where you can collaborate together, particularly with small woodland owners. If you share with your neighbours essentially a larger form of stand of spruce, then you could collaborate together, get facilitation fund for someone to coordinate the necessary works, the grant application, etc. And with the idea that it would minimise costs and time sort of taken. There's also an SPHN advice package, which is very useful for those with less experience of grant applications or forestry works. It essentially covers a proportion of agents' time. It's £475 standard cost, and you're required to produce a biosecurity management plan, but you should be able to get a good amount of time to get things moving. I will send around links to all the useful links after this. I'll need to edit the presentation to remove some animations, but all the sort of links to the grants, to all the different pest and disease resources will be in there. So yeah, just given time, I won't go into too much detail with the individual grant offers. This is where the grant is available. So for anyone with an SPHN, so statutory plant health notice, where there's confirmed beetle infestation, it's anywhere within that red area. But also what's being tested is proactive, a grant for proactive spruce removal. So in that blue area, you can get grant support to fell spruce proactively without having to have the beetle. So trying to remove the potential habitat of the beetle as it's blowing over. Yeah, so that was Ips typographus. I'll move on swiftly as well. We're took up a little bit of time on that, more time than planned. Excuse me. And the next one is oak processionary moth. So it's the actual the real pest is the oak processionary moth caterpillar. So yeah, scientific name Thalmetopea processionare. So processionare being how it manifests as caterpillars on trees at a particular part of its life cycle. So it moves together in processions up and down or round oak trees. It's non-native, first accidentally introduced on some nursery stock, so I think ornamental trees in London, and since then has managed to breed, and the moth is able to has been able to make it establish a bit further than we would have liked. What are the impacts? So to trees, it at very high levels it can impact oak trees. So if there's a already weakened tree, then have through large scale defoliation. So when there are significant numbers of caterpillars that are munching on oak leaves of an already weakened tree, then that could have serious effects. Often, I mean, particularly in sort of park settings, etc., you'll see it'll be on larger oak trees, and they are sufficiently healthy to resist, well, to withstand that that kind of impact from the caterpillars, but it's still not ideal for them. But the main impact that we're looking to sort of mitigate against is to people and animals. So these caterpillars, when they reach the sort of the mid to end stage of their caterpillar part of their life cycle, they produce these tiny to us, but actually they're quite big relative to caterpillars. I'll show some pictures in a sec. And yeah, these can cause itching, skin rashes, and if you do experience sort of allergies to other sort of say bee stings, etc., could potentially cause anaphylaxis. So then really not great to have around. The hairs can blow on the wind, so in areas of high infestation they can be really bothersome. So as I say, the skeletonized leaves can sort of denote an infestation. Those are the caterpillars there with the hairs. So relative to their actual size, the hairs are pretty big. You've then got these nests. So earlier, when the nests are first made, they're sort of white webbing. Later on in the season, they'll turn brown, and when they're disused, they will start to fall to the ground. They're still made out of hairs, and these hairs can still be quite irritating. So if you're in an area of where there's no oak processionary moth caterpillars, if you see sort of small little mounds on the ground, or if your sort of dog is sniffing around, it's wise to steer clear of them. Again, the caterpillar processions, if you do see them, then it's obviously pretty obvious that they are there. But yeah, and then whilst feeding, they can sort of cluster further up the branches while they're munching on leaves. And yeah, as I say, the rash looks like that. So yeah, the life cycle. So the eggs are laid on sort of plaques, very small plaques. They're very hard to see, so you can survey for them, but they're very tiny, and it's sort of during the winter, and they'll often be higher up trees. So the actual sort of effort it takes is not potentially worth it if you already have an idea that OPM is in a particular area. Females can lay between sort of 100 and 300 eggs each year. Mid to April, they start hatching. The eggs hatch just prior to bud burst on the trees. So, and then the caterpillars initially are about less than 3 millimeters with black heads and orange bodies. They feed at night and then stay in the leaf buds. And then towards the end of May to mid-June, these caterpillars have grown to roughly sort of 2.5 centimeters. They start to form nests, and those sort of white nests, and which are clean and pale in color, and they start growing these toxic hairs. So that's when they start to become a sort of public health risk. So particularly in areas of higher footfall, higher traffic. Excuse me. And then June to early August, those caterpillars, they're much easier to identify. They're quite significantly bigger, 30 to 35 millimeters, so 3 to 3.5 centimeters. There may be also signs of feeding damage, so that defoliation of the leaves, skeletonization, and the nests are much larger and covered in silk, and then from about late June to early August. So it's a couple of months where that sort of that public health risk season is, and the caterpillars are in that sort of larval stage, and then sort of they retreat late June to early August. Sorry, no, that's about wrong. Late June to early July. So the caterpillars retreat into the nest, and then they molt into the pupal stage.
Hello.
So late July to September, the moths then emerge. They're nocturnal and they only live for up to 4 days, and they don't feed. So all the work's really done by the caterpillars. But then the males emerge before the females, and they can fly up to 20 kilometers, so about 12 miles. So that's really the way that due to that flight capability, oak processionary moth and the caterpillar impacts has been able to spread quite significantly. But females are seldom found more than 500 meters, so yeah, half a kilometer from their home tree. So they'll sort of stay around there, but yeah, as they can kind of move, they will get further and further. Adult moths are not too distinguishable from some other species, so quite little brown jobs kind of thing. But also the moths are harmless. So once they have pupated and become moths, yeah, the risk is essentially gone. So this is the OPM management zone. So you can see the established area. So that is where we are not actively responding to every established OPM establishment. Within the buffer zone, so the yellow area, we do respond with statutory plant health notices and spraying of establishments. So that's that containment of the pest management strategy. In the established area, they are just so prevalent. There are grants available, which I'll come on to support the response within that established area. But essentially, it's looking at the risk mitigation and choosing the best option, because yeah, often, I mean, yes, spraying, so chemical spraying can not only be sort of detrimental to the environment, so other insects, other lepidopteri, other species, but also can be very costly. So if it's happening year on year, perhaps there's other ways of mitigating during those higher risk periods. So grants for oak processionary moth. There is support by the Tree Health Pilot. So the Tree Health Pilot is testing group management plans. So where you a sort of localized group which is experiencing the impacts of oak processionary moth comes together and has a facilitator that coordinates the putting together of a risk management plan. So as I was just mentioning, looking at those different ways of managing. So in higher risk areas, looking at what the options are. Potentially the only options might be spraying, but if there can be perhaps closing off footpaths for certain times of the year, different options depending on the specifics of the site. So and part of that is to support the cost of surveying, which with areas particularly within sort of the southeast, there's lots of oak trees, so that can really cost quite a bit, and so the grant covers 100% of those costs, as well as standard costs for some biosecurity items, so things such as signage and tape, which can, although not a direct response to the infestation, can really help in certain areas, just divert traffic and make people aware so that they are less impacted at these times of year. And yeah, as I say, each group needs a facilitator, so it's yeah, the grant covers their time. I think it's £24 per hour to help produce this local risk management plan. Yes, so on to the next one, which is Phytophthora ramorum, which some of you may be aware of. So there are a number of Phytophthora species. So the genus, Phytophthora literally means plant destroyer in Greek, which obviously doesn't sound great. The most well-known one, I believe it's Phytophthora ramorum, which I'll focus on. Historically, Phytophthora infestans was that caused the Irish potato famine. So that's a bit of an indicator of the sort of devastating impacts these pathogens can have. But yeah, by 1999, there's around 55 known species, a lot more sort of surveillance and understanding that it can hybridize. It's meant by 2007 there's over 100 known species. Phytophthora ramorum is a particular concern in forests and woodlands due to its impacts on species such as larch and sweet chestnut, but also can potentially further impacts to other species if it's left unmanaged. There's other ones that are surveyed for and the outbreaks are responded to quickly, which are Phytophthora pluvialis and Phytophthora canovii. Canovii impacts beech trees, and pluvialis conifers like western hemlock and Douglas fir has been found on. And yeah, we are actively surveying surveilling for those. So yes, since the mid-90s, aware of it in the ornamental and tree trade and sort of horticultural kind of environment. In that, it's causing dieback, particularly in rhododendron, camellia, and viburnum species. Its primary driver for infecting the wider environment is through rhododendron. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be sort of dealing with pockets of rhododendron in and around your woodlands. It's one of those things that's fairly pervasive throughout and requires management, but it's in areas where it's left infected and uncontrolled can then impact surrounding tree species. And the first findings of Phytophthora ramorum in Europe, in the UK and the wider environment, were in 2002. So yes, since then we've been very much surveying and looking for it. It can impact, say, larch and sweet chestnut. It's not known exactly when the first identification of infected sweet chestnut was, but in the 2000s, in 2009, it's infected bilberry. So that could potentially have wide-ranging impacts on the heathland species. So very much looking to thwart that. First identification of infected larch in 2009, and then further identifications on larch throughout the UK and Europe throughout 2010s. So the symptoms of Phytophthora ramorum infection. This I'm focusing on larch. It's the most sort of prevalent for woodlands, the ones we're really looking to control. So there's multiple points of entry in the crown of larch. It's not just it's not in the base of stem. The way that Phytophthora ramorum spreads is through water. So either water courses, mist. It's known as a water mold. So in areas where it's a bit wetter and experiencing those mists, it can move quite quickly. It can then infect through the leaves as well as through the stem, which is unusual, but specific to larch, that it both gets foliar and stem infection. So typically it'd be gingering of branches, retained needles showing some quick dieback, and also girdling on the tree. Badly affected trees can also have vigorous epicormic growth, so where they're forcing out shoots in order to try and survive. This is an idea of what it looks like on the stem, under the bark, on the branches. So quite heavily infected there. And this is a picture from one of the aerial surveillance flights. So similarly to typographus, yeah, the plant health forestry will use aerial flights to yeah to survey and pick out areas of sort of large plantations that have been impacted. They will then be able to survey on the ground, deduce whether it is Phytophthora ramorum infection. In certain parts of the country, it's more than likely, but they will still test. They use a lateral flow test, so they'll basically take a sample of the tree, the sap, and then use a lateral flow test to see if it is Phytophthora ramorum. And yeah, and from there, then they would plant health forestry serve a statutory plant health notice with, I think it's a year's deadline within which to remove infected trees within a certain area. So Phytophthora ramorum has been around for a little bit longer than say typographus. There's existing support through countryside stewardship grants. So that's for felling of immature larch, as well as for restocking after felling due to having an SPHN. So with these, with the Phytophthora ramorum grants, sites must have confirmed infection and an SPHN in order to qualify for the grants. Unlike the sort of proactive element that's been tested for its typographus, but similarly through the tree health pilot, we're also testing these other aspects of felling. So the felling covers also chemical killing, and then permanent infrastructure where needed. There's particularly areas in, for example, the Lake District, which are sort of highly inaccessible, where you have larch sort of growing on sort of fells that it's nigh on impossible to extract, and so requires some infrastructure being put in to get to them. So that's part of the grant. There's biosecurity capital items, and again, the restocking, maintenance, facilitation, and SPHN advice package. And also, just to mention, the countryside stewardship grants are also available for Phytophthora pluvialis and Phytophthora canovii, but the tree health pilot is just for Phytophthora ramorum. So that's quick run through of that. And now ash dieback, which I imagine will be the one that's on most people's radar. It's prevalent throughout the country, even in areas where there's lots of sort of healthy ash. I was just down in Somerset at the weekend and saw some ash in very good stead, but you will still see some very heavily affected ones within the landscape because it's just so pervasive. So yeah, the Latin name Hymenopsiphus fraxineus, but also known as Clara ash dieback. So originally it was Clara fraxineus, but due to further scientific research, it was changed due to essentially became Hymenopsiphus, but often referred to as Clara. It is a fungus, and the spores are transmitted by wind and in the leaf litter. So areas of built up leaf litter around diseased ash trees likely to be harboring spores. They can be the primary cause of tree fatality. So with a heavy viral load, they can overwhelm trees, but they can also act as a secondary pathogen. So weakened trees can be attacked by they can weaken trees and other pests and diseases come in, or already weakened trees can be impacted by ash dieback. So they can act as both primary and secondary pathogen. Armorillia, so honey fungus, often associated with ash trees that are suffering from significant decline from ash dieback. So where is it? It's native to Asia, but also widespread in Europe, and it's spread across the UK and England. So in the last 10, 15 years, it's been spreading. So southeast and east of England, very much very much the first ports in. So yeah, naturally that's the sort of the corridor from Europe. So first originally thought that it had come across in diseased nursery stock, but there's also a hypothesis that it could be blowover. So there's potential couple of routes of transmission. So what does it look like? The crown dieback is easy to spot when the surrounding woodlands in neighbouring trees are in full leaf, particularly those suffering from significant decline. What you will often see as well, so you potentially see at the top of this tree and in and around the stem, so that's the epicormic growth. So when it's flushing its hardest, when it's really on its last legs, which denotes that it's very much suffering. So you often see that. Also, these blackened leaves, which again very easily visible when trees are in full flush. So very distinctive against the green leaves of healthy ash trees or other trees. So yeah, can really pick those out. Lesions not as easy to spot from distance, but if you were to go up, particularly the sort of smaller younger trees that are sort of being affected, if you look closely, should be able to you'll often be able to find those lesions at the meeting points of the twigs, branches with the stems, particularly they're diamond shaped lesions is what you're really looking out for. So in terms of management of ash dieback, so for thinking back to that invasion curve, that diagram that showed earlier on in the presentation, very much looking at sort of asset sort of protection and things such as public safety. So removing hazardous trees, taking care of collapse, disease ash trees, snap and splinter quite easily. So trained professionals need to be used. Need to consider getting felling licenses. So we don't serve statutory partner health notices for SPHNs. You may, if a tree is declined so badly that it is deemed a hazardous tree, you may be able to get an exemption. If the council or highways serves you a notice requiring you to remove it, I would still suggest speaking to your local woodland officer to ascertain whether a felling license might be needed. Also, for any other ash trees you might be considering felling whilst removing the hazardous trees. Things such as road closures, often dangerous ash trees are by roads and require road closures as traffic management. Complying with UKFS, so best practice, or in terms of leaving deadwood in situ, and any restocking that might take place. Protected species and habitats, so dying trees often inhabited by bats, other protected species. So it's good to consider that. Potentially look into surveys, discuss with a local woodland officer. I think it's generally good first point of call. TPOs as well. So if you are to get a felling license, they would have checks in place there. But if you are looking to fell under exemption, it would be something to consider. Where possible, leaving mature or veteran trees that show resistance or tolerance and that can provide future seed sources is beneficial. Retaining that ecological value and looking to build tolerance within the landscape. Replanting where possible, natural regeneration. Ash is often in ancient woodlands, and that would be the best way forward. Looking at alternative species if you are replanting, and then the maintenance of those newly planted trees. So any broadleaves possibly impacted by deer or squirrels, so making sure they're adequately protected is essential. And I mean, it's quite nuanced, the management of ash dieback, and as with most sort of tree health issues, will be very site specific. So it's balancing your management objectives with those wider ecological considerations, and this table can hopefully sort of give an indication of when it's good to perhaps fell more, and when it's more advisable to fell less. So yeah, when you're looking to minimize the loss of timber value, so if you're actually managing ash as a timber product, also when there's safety issues, and then yeah, it can often be sort of smaller, younger trees that are more impacted at higher densities. There's a higher load, and yeah, the disease is more severe. So you may want to fell more, felling less when there's lower densities, more mature trees, more potential possibility for retaining that tolerance or resistance, when it's possible to minimize impacts on European protected species. But essentially it's considering your own objectives and considering the specifics of the site, so the safety issues, but how prevalent the disease is within your woodland, within the sort of the local landscape, when you might fell more or fell less. But again, I'd seek advice from sort of professionals, discuss with neighbouring woodland owners, but also local woodland officers. Your local woodland officer will be very, very good first point of call to discuss options. And so grant support, there is grant support through both countryside stewardship and the tree health pilot. So as countryside stewardship, it is essentially it's only for restocking and restocking capital items within woodlands. The tree health pilot is testing the roadside ash dieback issue. So essentially getting it has to be a group application. So getting groups of landowners together along road stretches to manage more of the tree health issue at the same time as reducing the costs and reducing the time taken for road closures. Any sort of further information on that, I will send around the links to this. Within that, there's also 80% of the costs of any European protected species surveys, as well as grant support in line with the CAS offer for restocking, but also maintenance grant, and again the group facilitation grant. So that's those four. That you can always go into a lot more detail with these pests and diseases, and I'm sure I've seen some questions coming in, but hopefully that's a reasonable start to sort of get thinking about them and get an idea of what they are. What you can also do to help is, so if you're not aware, Tree Alert is a forest research tool. So if you do spot any potential tree health issues and you're looking for some assistance in determining what they are, we'll send out the link to this as well, so that you essentially submit photos, information of the location as well as yourself, and forest research scientists will assess that. If they're able to make a diagnosis of the information, they will get in touch and let you know what it is, or they will. And if there's anything of particular concern, such as a notifiable pest or disease, they will likely escalate that for further sort of ground survey. So it's a really, really useful tool. There's certain pests and diseases that there's already sort of thumbnail reports on, so they're sort of a bit of extra guidance. But you can, any particular thing, woodland tree health issue, feel free to contact FR, and they're extremely good and will be able to advise accordingly. But also what you can do is ensuring good biosecurity practices. So part of the tree health pilot, the grant offer is biosecurity items, so that it's all the way from personal biosecurity kits all the way up to sort of larger sort of water bowsers, chippers, incinerators, etc. So ensuring that you keep your wellies, your boots, your tools clean, disinfected. So portable pressure washers, disinfectants such as Clean Kill, Propeller, for fabrics or tools. So essentially arriving clean, making sure that everything is clean when you first enter the site. Parking off-site is recommended, so, and also away from watercourses, on hard standing if possible. And then making sure you leave clean, so not taking any sort of debris with you, ensuring your boots are clean, your tools are clean, and so that there's no particular you're preventing that possible spread. There is gov.uk guidance on this biosecurity protocol and capital items specific to these pests and diseases that I've been through that have been drawn up as part of the tree health pilot. But I will finish it there. I'm aware I've probably not left a huge amount of time for questions, but yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, let's crack on with some questions.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you so much. I'm going to just scan through and we'll perhaps just have a look at some of the questions. So, one of the questions is, have there been any outbreaks of IPS in Ireland, and have the outbreaks been limited, or have the outbreaks been limited to Southeast England to date?
There've been none found in Ireland. They've only been found up until this year. They were only found in the southeast of England, so Kent, East Sussex, West Sussex, and Surrey. But earlier this year, there were findings in East Anglia, so Norfolk-Suffolk border. So the demarcated area was expanded, but that's as far as they've been found, and it is still consistent with continental blowover.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca Robinson asks, how does, have a go at saying it, Phytothera pluvialis spread?
Similar to, well, in the same way as Remorum. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. They are all known as water molds. So they're like algae-like organisms. So they move in either watercourses or sort of aerosol kind of modes. So yeah, very much in sort of misty, sort of foggier kind of areas. They can get around quite well.
Chris asks an interesting question. Just out of interest, what could have been done differently to eliminate the oak processionary moths, just as a lesson for the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And just from my experience working with typographus, it behaves quite differently, but there was a lot of lessons that were learned from OPM. I think it's making sure you have the resource and are responding as thoroughly at the beginning as possibly can, and ensuring that the local surveillance, the eradication measures are carried out quickly and sufficiently. Yeah, it does behave differently, and there's a lot more oak trees, so the chances of spread for OPM are going to be a bit higher. Spruce, the bark beetle, is coming in a bit differently. They're also a little bit lazier once they're here, and spruce is quite discreet within the landscape, so we can kind of pick it out a bit easier, and find those susceptible materials.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan says, is there anything other than emerald ash beetle which leaves tracks under the bark of ash trees? He's got a small ash tree that's died and just wondered what it could be that might leave galleries under ash bark.
I'm not sure I can answer that specifically, but there are likely a number of sort of boring insects that could get under there. I'm just looking at your question. You say you've reported it. If you've reported it to Tree Alert, then it would be hopefully they can give a good diagnosis. But again, potentially you could speak to your local woodland officer, and they might have a bit more of a sort of local kind of knowledge, and maybe knowledge of a similar instance nearby that it could be.
I think we just got 1 minute, so we'll end on this question. Simon says, we've got giant wood wasps in our fir trees. Are they anything to worry about?
No, not particularly. Anything at very high levels might be something to consider. Maybe of concern, but it's not something we are. It's not notifiable to us. If it's something like chestnut ghoul wasp, would be something to sort of be aware of. That is an invasive species. It's something that we were monitoring quite sort of closely previously. But yeah, giant wood wasps, not relative to the other sort of insect pests that we're looking at. They're not as much of a concern.
Okay, they're a concern when I'm trying to I think that's my Simon has done that. They're concerned when I'm trying to drink my tea.
Right.
They're massive.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Right. Yeah. Okay. And now people are just rolling in the thanks, Elliot, because it was a very informative and educational talk. Thank you for absolutely rampacking 60 minutes of education. We've
No,
got back to our book.
thank you very much for everyone attending. I'm just going to pop my my email address in the chat as well. So if there were any questions that weren't able to be answered or asked, please do fire them over to me. And if if I can't answer them directly, then I will make sure I can get an answer for them. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time out this evening, and I hope that was useful. And anything further, do feel free to get in touch with me. And as I say, I will always ram it home. Get in touch with your local woodland officer. They know an awful lot, and always there to advise and connect you with the best advice and guidance.
Thank you. And Elliot, just so you know, just for your ego, we've got 63 attendees, which is our joint highest we've ever had. So congratulations.
Great. That's great. No, thank you all. Yes. Brilliant.
Right. Thank you, everybody. And keep your eye out for future webinars and send any questions to either myself or to Elliot, and I will pass them on to him anyway. Thank you, everybody. And Elliot, see you soon. Thank you.
Cheers all.
Cheers.